For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. That most familiar verse is preceded by a thought similar to it, referring to a story of Moses and the fiery serpents, which comes from Numbers 21. Numbers 21, verses 4 through 9. But to summarize that story and then pick up toward the end, the children of Israel had murmured against God and against Moses, and God sent fiery serpents, and the bite of the fiery serpents would kill the people. So the people repented, and they turned to Moses and asked for Moses to appeal to God on their behalf. And God didn't just take the fiery serpents away. Instead, he said, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole, and if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. So in this Old Testament story, the people had to believe God's plan, and they had to respond in acting in such a way. If they wanted to be saved in physical life, they had to believe God's plan and look to the serpent in order to be saved. Well, that's why Jesus made reference to it in verses 14 and 15 of John 3. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. So spiritually, we need to believe God's plan and look to Jesus and look to him on the cross and believe in that plan in order for us to have eternal life. Well, that idea of looking to Jesus is talked about more in Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews 11 is the listing of various Old Testament examples of faith, and so it picks up in verse 1 of chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So, how is it that we can lay aside every weight and every sin that clings to us and have endurance to run the race? By looking to Jesus. Another translation says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, focusing and concentrating and staying focused on Jesus. And Jesus is described as the founder and perfecter of our faith. Another translation says the author and the finisher of our faith. And that reminds me of Revelation 22 when Jesus says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He is everything about starting and completing our salvation. So when we look to Jesus, we look and see, what did he endure? He endured the cross. And why did he endure it? Think about this phrasing here. Who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. Because he was looking past the cross to the joy that would come because of the cross, he was willing to endure the cross in the meantime. And then after he has endured, he is now exalted, and we can look to that in hope for ourselves. Well, the Lord's Supper helps us to regularly look back and regularly look to Jesus and be reminded of what he endured on the cross for us, so we can regain perspective, so that From that, we can then have the right perspective to lay aside those things that are hurdles against us, those things that are weighing us down, those things that are sin that entraps us, and we can run with endurance. Let us look to Jesus now during the observance of the Lord's Supper, and from it, run a race with endurance. Let us look to Jesus now.